Andrew woke with a startle. He coughed, and felt the sweat from his body stain the sheets beneath him. He looked over to Sarah, who was sound asleep in bed beside him, drifting somewhere in her dreamland. He rolled over and checked the alarm clock, which read 6:45 a.m. He slid his feet to the floor, then lifted his torso to follow. As he sat on the edge of the bed, he glanced back to the bedside table. The strange letter from the night before was still there, and he didn't want to throw it away. He reached for it and held it up to the window directly across from him. Even with the curtains drawn, the sunlight was strong enough that he could read the letter. This time he checked the back of the letter, because he hadn't thoroughly inspected it at all last night. Though there was nothing there. The back of the envelope was completely blank as well. As he was reinserting the letter into the envelope, he noticed another piece of paper was inside. Strange, Andrew thought. I could have sworn that the letter was the only thing in it before. Andrew removed the paper from the envelope and saw it read, "Courtesy of number 1. Andrew placed the envelope back on the bedside table and sat on the bed wondering what it all meant. He felt the urge to use the restroom, so he got up and walked into the hall. As he turned the corner of the long hallway, he saw Jess standing in the doorway, facing her room. "Hey, Jess, didn't know you got up so early," Andrew remarked. Jess didn't reply, and after a few seconds Andrew moved to switch on the hallway light. As the hallway illuminated, Andrew gagged at the sight in front of him. Jess was hanging by the throat from the door frame. Tightened around her neck was what appeared to be a bright red tie. Just as Andrew took a step towards Jess, there was a knock at the front door. The door was down the stairs, only a few feet behind Andrew. He could hear the voice that spoke at the other side of the door. "Hello, Andrew. It would appear that you've got quite the situation on your hands," a manly, unfamiliar voice said. "Why don't you let me in? We have much to discuss." Andrew turned and quickly ran back to his bedroom. He slammed the door and locked it. He went straight to Sarah, who was startled awake by the slamming of the door. "Sarah, honey," Andrew began as he pulled her into his arms. Jess is dead. I don't know where Grandma is. I think someone may be trying to harm us. Stay here. Scream as loud as you can if anyone comes near you." Just as Andrew finished what he was saying, he could hear the front door slowly open. The voice spoke again as it entered the house. "I've let myself in, Andrew, due to your lack of hospitality," it spoke in a professional manner. "I am aware of your location, and I am coming for you," it began as it climbed the stairs. "You have something of mine, and frankly I don't appreciate you not greeting me at the door." "Leave us alone," Andrew yelled. Now it was on the other side of the door. Andrew pulled the curtain rod from the wall attachment above the window and prepared to defend his daughter. "I will not let you enter this room," Andrew stated, but his voice was already quivering. The voice behind the door said only 2 words as the door clicked and began to open. "I disagree." The door peacefully opened, and the large, pale man placed what appeared to be a multi-tool into his pocket. "Greetings, Mr. Andrew. I am suit number 1, he stated in a rather unenthusiastic tone. He then held out his hand, offering a handshake, but Andrew swung at him. The suit grabbed the curtain rod before it could get halfway to hitting its mark. He pulled it close, Andrew still holding on tight. Andrew was thrown over the suit's shoulder and smashed into the ground. The curtain rod then tossed to the side. "Are you ready to converse with me now, Mr. Andrew?" it asked, while Andrew was laying on the floor, his world filled with pain. His entire body ached. He figured something was broken, and his back wasn't feeling in one piece anymore. As Andrew struggled to get up, a yell came from the hallway. Andrew looked to see his mom aiming her rifle at the man who now stood over her son. "Flip this, you bastard," she shouted and pulled the trigger. The round went through number one's shoulder, and he buckled in pain, collapsing to the floor. Grandma Jane ran straight to Sarah, grabbed her by the arm, and looked to Andrew. "Come on, you two. I don't know what's going on, but we've got to make like squirrels when the dog comes," she said hurriedly as Andrew pulled himself back on his feet. They all headed down the stairs, and Andrew grabbed his things from the living room. He remembered to grab his jacket, which still had the tie in the pocket. Sarah was the first out of the door, sprinting to the car. Andrew right behind her. He turned to see his mother, aiming her rifle at the top of the stairs at the suit. His arms moved faster than anything Andrew had seen before, and he heard a gasp from Jane. She turned to see her son, knowing it would be the last time. Embedded in between her eyes was what appeared to be a throwing knife, though it was hard to tell because of how deep it sunk into her face. She collapsed, and the rifle fired as it hit the ground. Andrew heard Sarah gasp in horror as she sobbed into the back seat, and he sprinted to the driver's side. The car roared to life as Andrew sped off. Dirt kicked up in the rearview mirror, but in the haze he could see number one standing in the driveway, staring back at him. It wore a very snug-fitting suit, professionally tailored. He was bald, with not a single wrinkle on his head. His arms were folded in front of him, as if he was patiently waiting for something. Andrew noticed something was off. It was missing a tie. Andrew turned to check on Sarah. She was quivering and shaking in the back seat, unable to comprehend the situation. Andrew knew only one thing. That tie meant something to that man, and he was going to find out what. The car sped past the fields as Andrew hurried to get to the highway. He knew that he had to create distance between himself and that suit. He turned back to see Sarah with concern on his face. "Honey, I want you to know that whatever happens, you're going to be okay. I will not let that man hurt you, and I will never stop trying to keep you safe." Andrew turned his attention back to the road. He knew he needed to find the highway, and fast. "Dad, thank you for always being there for me," Sarah said in a whimper, as the car sped through the back roads and straightaways. Everything seemed awkwardly silent. There were other cars around. However, the noise of the vehicles didn't seem audible to Andrew. He smacked his ears a couple of times, concerned he may have been losing his hearing. Thankfully, he could clearly hear the smack of his palms hitting his ears. "This is so strange," he thought. "All of this is just so strange and screwed up." Just when Andrew thought that the back roads would never end, there in all its glory was the entrance ramp to the highway. He peeled off and began the drive up the entrance ramp. As he prepared to merge, he noticed that there was only one car on the entire stretch of visible highway. He came to a halt on the ramp to let them pass, as there was no real reason to try and fight to get in front of them. However, the car slowed and came to a complete stop next to Andrew's car. Strange, he thought. Just as he was trying to figure out who was driving, a flash emitted from inside the car, followed by one of the loudest things he'd ever heard. A hole appeared in the hood of Andrew's car as the shotgun blast echoed through his head. Sarah covered her ears with her hands and began to cry as Andrew looked over to see the stone face of the suit. There was now a hole in the passenger window of the large SUV from where the shot initiated. "Hello, Mr. Andrew," the suit shouted. "Going somewhere?" All of time itself seemed to slow as the ringing from the blast echoed and left pain in Andrew's brain. All he could hear was Sarah lightly sobbing and the driver's side door of the SUV opening. The crunch of the glass under the weight of the suit as he crossed in front of the vehicle was chilling. "You've got something of mine, Andrew, and it's very important to me," the suit said while still maintaining his professional manner. Andrew closed his eyes and waited for the footsteps to stop next to his door, but they didn't. They stopped next to Sarah's door. Andrew snapped out of his trance when Sarah began to scream. Andrew opened his door and hastily advanced on the suit. It had already begun to open Sarah's door when Andrew forced all his body weight against him. The suit didn't budge, and Andrew bounced off of him, falling to the ground. Sarah was kicking for her defense, but the suit reached into the car and grabbed her leg. He pulled her out of the car, smacking her head to the pavement and silencing her. Andrew watched it all unfold from the ground. "How can I stop this? He is unstoppable, unbreakable." Then Andrew remembered the tie he still had in his pocket. He pulled it out and held it in front of him. "Hey, is it this you want?" Andrew shouted in desperation at the suit as he tried to stand up. The suit looked over to Andrew, dropping Sarah's leg. "All of this will stop if you would be so kind as to hand me my tie, Mr. Andrew," the suit said, a hint of concern audible in his tone. "What you hold is my heart, and it is the only reason I have been so violent towards you, my good man. Just hand it over, and I will not harm you or your daughter any longer." Andrew looked down at the tie in his hands. He noticed that it appeared to be shimmering in the sunlight as he faced it towards the suit. "If this is its heart, then maybe I can end all of it by destroying it." Andrew reached into his pocket and pulled out his lighter. He flicked it and watched the flame rise from the lighter's base. Then there was the pain, wetness dripping down Andrew's shirt. Andrew looked up to the suit, whose arm extended out as if he just threw something. Andrew's eyes glazed over, and he collapsed to the ground, the lighter going out as it fell from his hand. The suit looked back to Sarah, but she wasn't moving. He walked over to Andrew's lifeless body, the knife protruding from his neck. The suit reached down to Andrew, never forgetting why he was there. He ripped the tie from Andrew's hand and headed back to the SUV. Alrighty, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I just wanted to say that this was a blast writing my first story. I really enjoyed it. As you can see, I sort of left it open for maybe doing other entries in the series, more about the suits in general. Obviously, there's more than one. I have this whole idea panned out, and hopefully it can turn into multiple stories for your enjoyment. Make sure you guys let me know in the comments what you thought, but go easy on me. It's my first story. So anyway, guys, thank you so much, and stay creepy. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe to hear more of what I do here. If you like what you heard, make sure you give this video a like, as your support means everything to me. I hope you have a marvelous day, and as always, stay creepy.